Thank you for joining us on today's Renewed Minds. This edition is brought to you by To Our House. To Our House is a ministry to the homeless in the New River Valley. Its mission is to provide winter shelter November through March for homeless adults and connect them with necessary resources that lead to employment, housing, and economic stability. Local churches provide dinner, packed lunches, and fellowship for the guests. Contact Church on Main at office@churchonmain.church for more details. During the podcast, we'll be discussing challenges and opportunities we all face, no matter what the season of life we're in. Each episode will offer practical tips we've learned over the years and also share how love and grace can help each of us when we're trying to maintain hope. Today in the studio, we have Tommy McDearest, Senior Pastor of the Church on Main in Blacksburg, Virginia, and Tanya Dinkle, owner and coach of Life in Action. Today's topic is, are you thankful for anything? You know, the votes have been cast. Our leaders have been selected. Thanksgiving is here and Christmas is coming, ready or not. Are you too angry, resentful, fearful, and hurt, or are you able to find and share gratitude?
So really what you're asking, Steve, is, are you grateful for anything?
Right. Are you grateful for anything?
Wow. Tommy, are you grateful for anything?
I'm grateful for about everything. It's easy for me to look at things and be grateful a lot of the time for them, but I sadly do know a few people that find it very hard to be grateful for about anything.
Yeah.
They struggle for gratitude. They struggle for thankfulness. I know one person who dreads Thanksgiving every year because it's just not a day that they enjoy. They struggle to find themselves thankful for anything.
And I think it's important in those situations to try to figure out, is it situationally that there are things going on that cause them to be unhappy, stressed, anxiety-ridden, those types of things? Or are they really just having trouble finding things to be grateful about?
In this person's case, I think it has a lot to do with having anxiety and being depressed anyway. Okay. And because they're dealing with that depression and that struggle, it's hard for them to just feel up and thankful for things. Sure. And I think a lot of people get in those situations is they just feel so down and so wounded, and they've had things happen in life. They've had children have gotten in trouble, or they've been in disappointment. They just are in a stage in life where they're just finding it hard to be grateful. I am very thankful that I'm on the other side of that, is I can look at my life and be thankful for just about every step of it along the way.
I think those seasons, though, can happen at any age, can happen in any family dynamic, even if you're single, living by yourself, with family in different states. Like, you don't have to have that close-knit, see your family every week type of dynamic to still have challenges. And then there's also, if there's, mental health things going on, if you've got anxiety, depression, other diagnoses that could be present, that you're dealing with, and hopefully you're getting support and help with those. First of all, that's a thing to be grateful for, right? That you have those resources and that you are building the toolkit that you need to be able to manage your life. That's a huge thing for people to be grateful for. And hopefully for the people that love you and support you, hopefully they're grateful for those things too.
I just had someone, I don't know, it wasn't very recently, but someone who came to me that was really struggling. And I said, have you ever sat down and made a list of things that you were grateful for? That you could actually just make a list and see, hold it in your hand, and look at it, the things that you're grateful for in life. No, I've never done that. And I said, well, why don't you try that and just see how it works for them? And I saw them, several weeks later after that, and they said, I had to stop writing my list of things that I was grateful for because I had to go to sleep. They said I'd never done that before in my life, but I was amazed at the number of things that I came up with that I was thankful for in life, that I didn't really give any thought to until you said make a list of it.
Yeah, you were just saying, I think it was before this episode or in a prior recording, that you do in November, you do like a daily being grateful.
The months of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly, for the entire month of Thanksgiving. And a lot of folks do that in different ways. You can do, some people do it on Facebook. They'll do it with pictures, or they'll just say, day 1 of 28, day 2 of, and this is what I'm thankful for today. Some people just wake up. I heard one person one time say that she wakes up every morning before she actually gets out of bed. She reaches for her phone, pulls up her notes, and writes out all the things that she's thankful for before she even gets out of bed, and it can't be anything that she had already on the list. So again, forcing to think about all of the things that you're grateful for before the day starts.
I have one thing that I just give thanks for. Was my wife.
Oh, of course.
I am just.
She's a saint.
She is a saint, no doubt about that. But it took me a while to get up the guts to ask her out, and then it took me 3 dates to know I wanted to spend my life with her. and I've spent 45 years with her, and I wouldn't change that. I still am so grateful for that relationship and what that's meant in my life. And so there's at least one thing that I wake up with every day that I never have to wonder if I'm thankful for it. I feel the same way about my 3 children and my 4 grandchildren. And I even feel that way about my dog. They're just
and the order of that was good too. Wife, children, grandchildren, dog.
At least I didn't mess that one up. Yeah, that's it. But it was, there are just so many things that I am grateful for. I'm grateful for my church. I'm grateful for our church family that we have here, and the vast number of things that we are so involved in and making a difference in that, I know pastors who struggle to try to get their church to do anything right in there next door. And our problem here quite often is trying to narrow the list of things that our people are interested in trying to get involved in.
Yeah.
So if I sat and started making my list of all the things that I'm grateful for, I'm going to be one of those people that I have to go to sleep sometime.
Yeah. It's a good exercise to go through. But some people struggle with that. They struggle because of past experiences, both good but mostly bad. I think when people are struggling with gratitude, it is struggling with identifying the good in the bad. Sometimes, we've talked in a past episode about twists of fate and how life doesn't always turn out the way that we think it's going to. And that can absolutely be a cause to not be grateful because what we have isn't what we thought we'd have. But if you flip the script on that a bit, if you did have what you thought you were going to have, would you actually be grateful?
That's a good point.
Maybe not, right? It may not be what it looked like. The grass is not always greener on the other side. And with what you do have, how wonderful is that, right? For me personally, I've shared this openly before, and even in the twist of fate. If you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go back and check that out because we talk a lot about this type of thing. Life isn't what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't what I pictured it being. It's so much better. It's just so much better. And I'm grateful for all of those things. Like you said, my husband, my bonus kids, the dog, the work that I get to do every day, the church people that I get to worship with every week, the choir, oh my gosh, the choir, the music that we get to make, and just all the fun things that we get to do, the way that we get to impact people, the trips that my husband and I get to take, like the family time that we get, all of these things are wonderful. And I could very easily get bogged down in the idea that, but that wasn't what I pictured because I didn't give birth to children of my own. But I don't. I'm so grateful for these other things. I've grieved that, the fact that it didn't happen. I'm okay with it because it wasn't God's plan. Clearly it wasn't God's plan or it would have happened. And for many reasons, I've said, God knew what he was doing. He did. He absolutely did. But I think letting go of things that were in the past or that weren't what you thought they were going to be, kind of reframing regret of not having what you thought you were going to have, can open up the door to let you be grateful for what you do have, because all of those things are such blessings.
It is important, I think, to say as you're thinking about gratitude is everybody has some regrets.
Oh, absolutely.
You're not going to make it through life without some regrets of I wish I had, as a parent, wish I had done this, or I wish I had known this when I was such and such age. Everybody has their regrets that they come up with in life. that doesn't mean that you can also find your gratitudes in all of that.
Absolutely. And some things, if you regret the way that you handled a relationship, and that relationship is something that you would whether you have a desire to repair the relationship or, maybe you just want to clear your conscience, you can kind of do one of the AA 12 steps of going back and reconcile with that person. Just,
right.
Make amends with that person. It's interesting. It wasn't anything life altering, but I did have a situation with a former coworker who, as they were exiting our organization, I made a comment to them, and I didn't mean it. And when I said it, I was like, oh, that didn't sound quite right, but I didn't correct it in the moment. And candidly, I was not in a great headspace or a great heart space personally in that moment. And I saw, and it ate at me for a while, and I saw the person several years later, and one of the first things I said to them was, I said something to you at this moment, and I regret that. And I sincerely apologize because I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I didn't mean it in my heart. And I apologize for any damage that has caused you. And they looked at me and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So clearly it bothered me more than it bothered them.
Yeah.
But it did give me the ability to then move past that and say, okay, you know what? I owned it. I screwed up. I owned it. And now I've moved forward. And I'm grateful that I did that. I'm grateful that I took that step. And, we can, move forward with that, whatever that relationship may look like.
You can. It is possible to reframe regret with gratitude, with apologies, with whatever means you need to go through that to find it. But after you have done that, then being able to be grateful that for whatever the circumstances were, what did you learn from it? What did you bring away from it? What kinds of things do you has made you a better person now than you would have been otherwise? Things are just can be tough in life, no matter what your circumstances are. Can you bring anything away from that you would be grateful for in the days that are ahead? That's going to be the transformation in whatever it is that you're struggling with.
Part of that, too, is being in the moment, being present in what's happening. Instead of thinking about what's coming and what you are expecting to happen or you're hoping or even praying will happen and being forward-focused, really paying attention to what's happening in the moment. And that can be something as simple as sitting in the living room with your family and listening to your kids laugh. And that is totally good to be grateful for that. Like, there are people that don't get to experience that at all. Because of many reasons. They may not have children or have a family dynamic that they can do that. Their children may not be healthy enough to do that. You never know what circumstances may cause someone else to not be able to enjoy what you have in front of you in that moment. But in order to enjoy it and be grateful for it, you've got to be aware that it's happening. And you can't be aware it's happening if you're not actually present in the moment.
And I can even look back on a day when that was the case with me. I was sitting at the house. My 3 adult children were home there. One of the rare occasions that we had just the 3 of them with the 2 of us. And I was watching TV, and there was something I was trying to hear, and I couldn't because of all this laughter and everything going on in the background. And I started getting annoyed, and I can't. And then it suddenly hit me. I'm getting to listen to all 3 of my children laugh in my house together. There's going to always be a story on TV. You're not going to hear this every day. Right. Just sit back and relax and enjoy this. And
another version of that is the phone. We are so focused on what's in our hands. We're not paying attention to what's next to us these days. And that is people of all ages, kids of all ages, people with kids of all ages. Like, this is happening everywhere. It's an epidemic in the society of just being addicted to our phones.
Oh, the school that started taking phones up at the door, they put them in. I've got mixed emotions about that because of some things that have happened in the past. But they said the transformation that they saw was that all these kids that went to lunch and did nothing but sit and look at their phone, they all started talking to each other. And they started building relationships with each other that they didn't have before.
And I can tell you, looking ahead, okay, this is a moment I'm going to step out of the present. I'm going to look ahead for a minute. As an employer who needs people with personalities that can actually interact with other personalities, that is a valuable life skill to be able to have. And we could debate the method as to how they get there all day long. We don't need to do that. But anything that we can do to create in anyone around us, whether they're our children or not, or within colleagues, whatever the case may be, create this this scenario where people can actually build relationship and interact, build that life skill, learn how to communicate verbally, not just in text speak. I've gotten resumes and cover letters with text lingo in them. Not appropriate, by the way. You need help with that, let me know. Send me an email. We'll get you squared away. But, I mean, it is truly, there are so many things that have evolved that came from this addiction to a phone that have not been good for the development of our kids and now adults.
Yeah, and the kids really show that in school.
Yeah.
It's almost like a piece of their brain didn't quite develop them. And I don't mean that negatively. It's that emotionally there is something that does not develop as well. If your little kids have a device in their lap all the time, they're missing out on some very important things.
Yeah, and here's something that most people aren't thinking about. If you're seeing that in your kids, that something is missing, they've missed a development opportunity for something critical like building a social skill, that's going to carry forward throughout the rest of their life unless it gets fixed.
That's right.
And most of the time it doesn't get fixed because everybody else is distracted with the same things. So then these kids are graduating, going into the workforce without having any idea that they actually can't spend time on their phone because they have to be doing work, like adult work. They have to be on time. They can't work from home every single day. They need to dress for work. Like all of these things that generations prior kind of, it was assumed, you didn't have to talk about it. This is how it was. We now have to explain it openly and regularly and make sure that we reset that expectation. And then we're also having to train leaders to have those conversations because these are skills that the kids just don't have.
They didn't come up with it as they were going along. And COVID made all of that worse.
Oh, it did. Absolutely.
In so many ways.
Absolutely.
It's just losing that year and a half of socialization.
Well, even the masks and the development of young children. Yeah. And like I remember my sister talking about my nephew was learning his alphabet in school during COVID, and with masks, you can't, with phonics, you watch how the mouth actually moves and forms and where the tongue goes. You can't do that in a mask. So they actually created pieces of paper and put them on the wall to try to draw diagrams so that kids could learn phonics.
How do we overcome those kinds of things to try to build a better future? And I don't know that you've got the answer to that. I don't have all the answers to that.
So I don't know that there is an answer. I think it's multiple
there should
things.
Have been. I wanted there to be one.
Well, you always want pie in the sky, but the reality is you got to work for it a little bit. So I think some of the things we've already talked about: being present in the moment with people, investing in people. You know, we're talking about gratitude. Other people are grateful when you invest in them, right?
Oh,
it's not just about your gratitude outward. It's other people being grateful for you. Do things that make people grateful for you. And the investment of time and energy in them is not going to be unnoticed. They will absolutely feel that. Was it Eleanor Roosevelt that said people forget what you do, but they will not forget how you make them feel?
That's right.
So powerful. So true. So being present, investing in people. When you see something there's a gap somewhere, step in, lean in, and address it. Again, somebody's going to be grateful for that, and you probably will be grateful that you did it too.
And I'm here again, I'm in the ministry. I'm a people watcher. You have to be if you do what I do, if you care about people. And one of the things that I do is just watch their body language or what their face is saying to them that day and saying about them that day. And go and step into it and just say, are you okay? Can I help? Is there anything that's going on? I've rarely had anyone get aggravated with me to say, just leave me alone. Most of them are very grateful that you have taken the time to, and even now and then somebody will, and I've got a friend who is in law enforcement, and I asked her that one day, and I'd asked her, before, and she said, when are you going to learn that I just have a terminal case of resting bitch face? She said, I am not unhappy. I just look like this all the time. And I said, yes, I know that you do. But I said, I just want to make sure. And she said, okay. So what you're telling me is you're going to keep asking me this every time you see me. I said, yes. And you're just going to have to get used to it. I said, there could be worse things. What if I didn't care enough to ask?
That's
and
right.
she said, oh, well, I guess you got a point there.
That's an important thing, though. Just asking someone how they are, if they're okay. Hey, you don't seem like yourself. Is everything going okay? Mm-hmm. The message of care and compassion that sends to that person could be a turning point for them. Mm-hmm. So don't underestimate the power of that.
Well, I had another individual with the same kind of situation. They had told me more than once, this is just my face, but I went to them one day and I said, how are you doing? Are you okay? And they turned around and looked at it like it had aggravated them. Mm-hmm. And they just sat there and said, my grandfather's dying. Mm-hmm. And he was the most important person in my childhood. And I'm really struggling today. And so, it was that moment when we just got to sit and talk about something that was really important to them.
Yeah.
And so, I was glad that I had kept pushing that to try to find out. And so were they. They were actually grateful for the opportunity to get to talk about that and see where it was going to lead them to talk about that.
Yeah. And when you have a relationship with the person that you're talking about, that is often the case. Mm-hmm. They feel safe. You've created a safe environment that they can open up, and then they can decompress. Yeah. And that's important.
I was at the gas station. This was a couple of years ago now, and a beautiful young woman who was dressed to the nines was standing there pumping gas the other side of me and crying her eyes out while she was doing it. So I finished pumping gas, and for just a split second I thought, okay, this is probably a private thing, but I still walked over there being me. And I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm fine. And I said, well, honestly, young lady, you don't look fine right now. I said, are you sure you're okay? And she said, I'm going to have to be. She said, I was engaged she was a student here at Tech. She's senior year, said we were engaged to be married, and said this about an hour ago. He told me he did not want to be with me anymore. He had found someone he liked better. Oh. And she said, I'm just trying to get my head around that, and I'm on my way to work, and I've got to go. And so she said, but thank you for caring enough to ask. Yeah. And I said, I said, he probably missed out. Mm-hmm. And I said, just remember that this won't be your last opportunity. Yeah. But I said, that doesn't keep this opportunity from hurting. So I said, go ahead and hurt, but don't give up. Right. And she said, well, thank you for that.
That's when it's hard to be grateful. Mm-hmm. When our hearts are broken, we are so hurt, we have been disappointed. We've been betrayed in some situations.
And that was a betrayal.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been abandoned. Mm-hmm. And there are stories, there are infinite stories for most people that hit one of those somewhere, right? It is so hard to be grateful. So what do you tell people when they have those types of things, and it is justifiably, wow, like you said, you can absolutely grieve. You can be angry right now.
That's one that I say regularly. Is it's okay for you to be angry in a situation like that. You've just been mistreated. No matter how you turn it, it's okay to be angry in a situation like that. It's okay to grieve something. What you thought was going to be a wonderful life is not happening. I said, I usually tell them, though, is start looking for the other answers, which means it didn't turn out the way you thought it was going to turn out. is there something you're going to learn from this that's going to be better? And I said, and in her case, if I had had more time with her, I would have said, you've just learned something very valuable right now, is that the man that you were in love with couldn't be trusted. Mm-hmm. It's much better to learn that right now than it is 10 years down the line when there's children involved in something else.
Right.
You learned a valuable lesson today, and your heart's broken and you're wounded. If I had had time to stand there and have an hour conversation with her, I would have tried to have pointed some of those things out. I didn't have the chance to do that. But I hope that she came to that conclusion. Fortunately, I have had the opportunity to do that with others. And I said, this won't make it feel better right now, but you learned a valuable lesson today.
Yeah, yeah. Taking that and knowing, first of all, that there's gratitude to be had there, that there was a lesson to learn, and you physically survived it to be able to learn the lesson. There's gratitude there. And then being present enough to, as you're walking the path, and it's a painful path. We've all walked our version of it, but walking the path of repair and sometimes regrowth in a completely different way helps you be grateful for what you're learning, so that at some point you'll get to the end of that path and you look back and go, wow, that would have been a mistake.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've joked for years about, wow, I'd been married, multiple times had I married all the guys that I had, gone out on a date with or had a crush on or any of those things, but none of them would have worked. And it's so true. Like, it wouldn't have worked because it wasn't the right one. But there were lessons in all of the bad dates, in the bad relationships, in, the heartbreak. There were lessons in all of them.
Mm-hmm. There was a young lady that I just tacitly dated when I was in college who would very much like for that to have gone further than it did. And I have thought on more than one occasion, I wouldn't have the life that I have right now.
Right.
And the joys that I have with it if it had gone that way instead of this way. I am so glad that it did.
Yeah.
I always liked Garth Brooks' song, I Thank God for Unanswered Prayer.
Yeah.
That sometimes there's important things to be in that.
Yeah, yeah. So this oftentimes means that we have to reprogram negative thoughts that are defaults for most of us. Right. And some would say that's Satan talking. Right. Satan is planting those words in your head. Others say it's just how we're wired as humans, or because of environmental life experiences, things like that.
Both.
Could be both.
Could be both. Along those lines.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes I get negative thoughts and I start feeling down just because I don't know if you would call it a low-grade depression or whatever. Depression's always run in my family. I've had nothing like my parents had, especially my dad. Both of them had acute depression at times, so forth. I have not had that. There was one brief period of my life, and I knew what was triggering it. But I still have those moments where I'm just, I've had one of those moments today in a strange kind of way, of having a situation that arose that really bothered me intensely, and I've had to sit and really think about it. I have to remind myself to break out of that because, if you start to float downward, you better sooner or later start to kick.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to get back up to the top.
Yeah. My husband and I talk occasionally about spiraling and not getting on roller coasters that other people want us to get on, meaning the emotional roller coasters that take you nowhere. And he said something to me recently, and I really appreciated, first of all, the fact that he was vulnerable enough to say it, but how he said it. He said, when you say this, it will cause me to do this. So, very good IU messaging there. And he was absolutely right. And, caused me to stop and go, okay, wait a minute. What am I doing that is adding to these messages? And how can I stop that? Right. Yeah. And just calling that out very directly to people when they're doing it, because sometimes don't even realize they're doing it.
I use that very statement sometimes when I'm doing counseling with people, especially when I'm doing counseling and with couples. I'll say, when you do blank, I feel blank. Now fill those in and let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And it usually does open up. It's going to either open up a good discussion so people can feel better about where they are. It's going to open up a place of anger. Even if it opens up a place of anger, it's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, well, the key is there. It's not a messaging format that places blame.
That's right.
So if you're not placing blame, then you're not trying to deflect anything. It really is, you're coming at the whole situation from a perspective of let's fix it. Mm-hmm. And we do it together.
Yeah, and that's what I try to get other couples to do, we try to do that at home too with Susan. If occasionally things aren't going quite right, we try to talk about those kind of things and see why.
Yeah.
And that's something else you can be grateful for, is that you got a relationship that allows you to do that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Not everybody does.
Yeah, not everybody does.
All right, so let's recap. What are you grateful for? Are you grateful for anything?
Yeah, grateful for a lot of things. Actually, really grateful for a lot of things.
And how can we practice being grateful?
I think it's one way that I think we could practice being grateful is what I said earlier was make your list of things you're grateful for. What it does more than anything else, it just reminds you that you have things to be grateful for that you may not have thought about. Also, just take the time to step back and say, I'm just so grateful for this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
These things that make you, feel positive about life itself. I'm grateful that I have a purpose, that I know what that purpose is. There are all kinds of things that we can come up with, but we have to remind ourselves to do that sometimes.
We do. We also need to stay present, present in the moment, present in situations, so that we can be grateful for those. One of the things we haven't talked about that just came to mind was making sure that we are creating or putting ourselves in positive, healthy relationships. We alluded to it a little bit, but didn't call it out really specifically. Surrounding ourselves with people who foster that instead of the opposite. So, people who fill us up instead of draining us, people who encourage us instead of discourage us. The list can go on and on.
I think positive relationships make all of the difference in the world in how you react to the situations around you. If you have a bad situation come up and you've got negative people as the only people you're dealing with, it's going to be hard to find gratitude in that because you're going to just be down all the time.
Yep.
Surround yourself with good people. And then one other that I think is important here is put your gratitude into action.
Yes.
Step out with that gratitude. Take it somewhere. Do something with it. Express those words of thanks to someone else. Tell them why you're grateful for them. How do you turn your gratitude into service for other people to try to give them something to be grateful for too?
Yeah, and if you're looking for ways to do that, ideas, gratitude jars are ways that you could do that. They give you, daily suggestions. Just pull something out of the jar and it gives you something to focus on for that day. It's a neat little trick to.
Oh, absolutely. It's there's all kinds of ways to do that, but I have had times in my life when I would not be in the best mood. And so I would tell myself, I'm going to go do something for someone that they will be grateful for. Mm-hmm. And it makes a huge difference when you do that. It even helps your attitude.
Mm-hmm. Giving is better than receiving, right?
Usually they are grateful.
Usually they are grateful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am grateful for this conversation.
Oh, I am too.
This has
been
good.
For you.
Well, I'm grateful
and
for
you too, Steve.
Yes, you too, Steve. Without you, this would not be possible.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciated all the discussion on everything that we've done, because you're right. Gratefulness is changing your frame of mind. You really have got to look not at what your problems are, but what you're thankful for. What made you happy today? Who made you happy today? What situation made you happy today? Just got to change your focus.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that's all for today. We thank you for investing your time in our messages. We are truly, truly grateful for each of you. If you found today's episode to be helpful, please like and subscribe to this podcast and share it with others. If you'd like to join in on the conversation or you'd like to connect with Tommy or me, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at renewedminds@churchonmain.church. We hope you make it a great day and approach every day with a renewed mind. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one.
Hopefully this brings a renewed perspective to the challenges and opportunities you're facing today. What steps are you going to be taking to show love and grace to everyone? If you have any questions or comments about our podcast, please send an email to renewedminds@churchonmain.church. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. Listen next week for the next Renewed Minds.